At 4:13 a.m., deep inside Russia's Belgorod forest, a missile sliced through the dawn sky, a single 9M338 interceptor fired by a Tor M2 air defense system. Its target? A Ukrainian drone no bigger than a sparrow. The hit was perfect. The drone vanished in a flash. Russian and Chinese troops on the ground erupted in cheers. But what they didn't know was that the drone's final act, this was before being vaporized, wasn't reconnaissance. It was a transmission. In its dying milliseconds, it had already sent the exact coordinates of every truck in the convoy back to Kiev. The soldiers believed they had eliminated the threat. In reality, they had just confirmed their own destruction. This was not a random drone encounter. This was part of a meticulously crafted Ukrainian operation, one that began hundreds of miles above Earth. It started in orbit when commercial American satellites from Maxar Technologies captured unusual activity at the port of Vladivostok, containers marked with Chinese military codes being offloaded in total secrecy. The cargo, PLZ-05, 155mm self-propelled howitzers, the first shipment of a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal between Beijing and Moscow. Once confirmed, that data triggered a new operation in Ukraine's Joint Intelligence Command, codenamed Ghost March. From that point forward, the convoy's every move was shadowed by eyes Ukraine never admitted to having. Small, silent Switchblade 300 loitering drones weighing less than 5 pounds trailed the convoy from high altitude, their encrypted feeds relayed through Starlink satellites. Beneath the digital silence, artificial intelligence in Kiev went to work, scanning radio chatter, identifying call signs, analyzing behavior patterns, and even predicting where the convoy would stop for rest. This wasn't just surveillance, it was a prediction at a machine learning level, war reduced to math, and the stakes were enormous. This shipment represented the first tangible result of Russia's secret arms arrangement with China, an attempt to offset its collapsing artillery losses in Ukraine. If those howitzers reached the front, it would mean renewed bombardments of Ukrainian positions around Kharkiv. Failure meant losing a city. Success meant denying Moscow its new lifeline. So, Kiev made the decision. The convoy wouldn't see daylight again. At 4:15 a.m., 5 miles from the convoy's route, an M113 armored vehicle sat camouflaged beneath thermal netting. Inside, a single Ukrainian drone operator leaned forward, his face illuminated by a green display. He flicked a switch, and one by one, 25 FPV drones lifted silently into the night. Each was armed with a shaped charge warhead, small but lethal. But what made this strike unprecedented wasn't the firepower, it was the programming. The drones didn't fly in formation. They didn't even follow straight paths. Instead, they scattered chaotically in all directions, executing what Ukrainian engineers called the Phantom Swarm protocol. To human eyes, it looked like randomness, like a flock of birds twisting unpredictably through the air. To the Russian Tor M2's radar, it looked like nothing at all. The Tor's AI, designed to track fast, linear threats like missiles or aircraft, couldn't interpret the erratic radar echoes as hostile. It dismissed them as environmental clutter, possibly birds. The swarm effectively vanished from Russian sensors. For a moment, it was perfect. Then static tore across the operator's screen. He knew that distortion immediately. The source wasn't the weather, it was electronic warfare. A Russian Orlan 10 reconnaissance drone had entered the area, and worse, it was jamming. The hunter had just become the hunted. If that Orlan located the control signal from his M113, the Spetsnaz escort units would have 10 seconds to pinpoint and destroy it. At 4:16 a.m., the Orlan operator, sitting miles away, noticed something strange. His AI-assisted system saw nothing unusual, just random radar flickers, but his instincts said otherwise. The signal patterns looked too controlled, too synchronized. He overrode the automation and made a direct voice call to the Spetsnaz commander escorting the convoy below. The response was immediate. A Russian LPD-801 anti-drone rifle, a shoulder-mounted weapon emitting concentrated electromagnetic pulses, was activated. A silent beam shot into the night, and 3 of the Ukrainian FPV drones suddenly fell like stones, their motors dead, feeds cut. Inside the M113, 3 screens went black. "We've lost 3!" the operator shouted, voice cracking through the comms. "Oh, they're tracking us!" The illusion of the phantom swarm was gone. The convoy commander barked 2 rapid orders. First, all trucks were to move immediately. The forest erupted with diesel engines as 15 trucks, each carrying heavy artillery, began accelerating to 40 miles per hour. Second, launch 2 more Orlan drones to expand the search grid. In seconds, the balance of power shifted. The swarm was no longer invisible. It was prey. And somewhere in that forest, the signal controlling it was now broadcasting like a flare in the dark. Russian anti-tank teams locked onto that electromagnetic source with Kornet missiles, ready to fire the moment they confirmed coordinates. At 4:17 a.m., the Ukrainian operator made a bold move. Instead of trying to hide, he changed the rules entirely. He activated a countermeasure known as the Echo Trap. Unlike traditional jamming, the Echo Trap doesn't block a signal, it hijacks it. The system recorded Orlan's control frequency, delayed it by milliseconds, then rebroadcast it back to the drone. To the Orlan's onboard computer, it was like hearing its own voice echo back out of sync, an auditory illusion in digital form. The result was chaos. The Orlan's navigation system became disoriented, its positional data looping and conflicting. Within seconds, it believed the swarm was miles away from where it truly was. The drone began flying in confused circles, its eyes now effectively blind. That was the opening Kiev needed. A side hatch on the M113 slid open, and a Switchblade 600 loitering munition launched skyward, a 50-pound, high-endurance drone armed with a 10-pound warhead. It climbed silently to 15,000 feet, using thermal sensors to locate the Orlan's faint engine heat. For half a minute, the Russian drone circled aimlessly, until a blur descended from above. The explosion tore it apart midair, a kill so precise that fragments rained down like confetti. But the victory was short-lived. On the ground, the Spetsnaz unit didn't need a drone feed to know what happened. They'd just watched their reconnaissance asset disintegrate over their heads. Now they knew the attacker's direction, and they had heavier tools to retaliate. At 4:18 a.m., the convoy commander called for air support. From a nearby Russian base, a Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopter roared into the sky, a 12-ton flying tank killer armed with laser-guided Viper missiles. Its mission? Locate and annihilate the Ukrainian control vehicle. The Ka-52's thermal sensors swept across the treetops until they found what it was looking for. The M113's faint but unmistakable heat signature glowing through the canopy. Inside the M113, the operator was still focused on his drone feed when the warning system suddenly screamed. A red icon appeared on his display. Laser-guided lock. Vicar inbound. Time to impact, 20 seconds. He froze, then moved with machine precision. Instead of fleeing, he prepared a countermeasure. With a hiss, a small canister launched from the M113's roof, arcing into the air before bursting into a glowing aerosol cloud. The smoke phantom. It wasn't ordinary smoke. It was a chemically engineered decoy that burned hotter than any engine. To the missile's thermal seeker, it looked like the M113 had suddenly moved and was on fire. The Vicar adjusted its course midair and plunged straight into the decoy. A brilliant flash lit the forest, harmlessly. The M113 survived, but the Ka-52 wasn't finished. As the helicopter maneuvered for a strafing run, the Ukrainian operator launched his trump card, a single FPV drone modified with an experimental EMP warhead. On the Ka-52's radar, it looked insignificant, just a tiny blip. The pilot ignored it, lining up his cannon. But at a few hundred feet out, the Ukrainian operator triggered the charge. There was no explosion, just silence. Then the Ka-52's entire cockpit went dark. Screens flickered and died. Targeting computers crashed. The helicopter's avionics were fried in an instant. The pilot was left blind, flying a 12-ton brick. He pulled up desperately, abandoning the mission. The last Russian asset capable of defending the convoy limped back toward base. The sky was clear. At 4:21 a.m., inside the M113, the operator stared at the 22 remaining drones orbiting in perfect formation above the forest. He pressed the final authorization. The swarm descended as one, 22 FPV drones diving at over 120 miles per hour, each locked onto a truck's thermal signature. The first impact struck the lead vehicle. A shaped charge pierced its steel fuel tank, 0.4 inches thick, and detonated with a half-second delay. The result was catastrophic. 600 gallons of diesel ignited in an instant, turning the convoy into a rolling inferno. Each explosion triggered the next. Secondary detonations tore through the line, ammunition, fuel, and artillery shells cooking off in sequence. Within 3 minutes, 15 Chinese-made PLZ-05 howitzers and 20 trucks were nothing but twisted steel. Flames rose through the Belgorod forest like a signal flare visible for miles. Hours later, a Maxar satellite captured the aftermath. Charred craters, scorched tree lines, and the skeletal remains of trucks scattered across a half-mile radius. The largest crater measured 35 feet wide. In Kyiv, the imagery confirmed total mission success. The operation didn't just destroy hardware, it disrupted Russia's entire tactical balance. The first consequence? Communications collapse. The EMP drone and loss of the convoy's command truck crippled Belgorod's local C2 network. For 72 hours, an entire sector of the front went silent. The second, artillery parity. Without the incoming PLZ-05s, Russia's firepower advantage around Kharkiv vanished overnight. Ukrainian forces pushed forward, retaking ground previously considered lost. And the third, psychological shock. In Moscow, senior commanders began quietly questioning the value of Chinese equipment, hardware that had never fired a shot before being obliterated. What was supposed to mark the dawn of a new Russian-Chinese partnership instead became evidence of Ukraine's technological edge, a war fought not just with weapons, but with code, algorithms, and audacity. In under 10 minutes, one operator inside an aging M113 had destroyed a convoy worth over $70 million, blinded Russian air defenses, and shattered a geopolitical illusion. Modern warfare isn't about who has the bigger army, it's about who adapts faster. And on that cold morning in Belgorod, Ukraine proved, once again, that ingenuity can kill empires.